Your Words Destroyed My Planet, the stream series. The edited version. Originally streamed live at twitch.tv/dualitiesdownfall. More information in the description. For Your Words Destroyed My Planet, Chapter 28.
We need to have this conversation we're not having, you say grimly as you look out at the open road. Well, you say road, semi-terraformed tundra, and you say open, but it's kind of winding, and there are trees, so what really... Not the point.
Wait, do you mean a conversation that we definitely didn't have, nudge nudge wink wink? Or is this more a conversation we've been avoiding having?
Aradia asks, her eyes firmly on the not open, not road. Your mind flickers to Solix. That's a topic you could be talking about, but definitely aren't going to. Especially not with Aradia. Okay, maybe eventually, but not yet. I meant this whole light storm thing. You clarify.
We know it's there, it's hitting other ships, and it's affecting the Atuan. We don't even know if Fazer's death was a real freak accident or a spectrally orchestrated freak accident. Aradia says, with clear frustration in her tone.
Yeah, that's the stuff we know, or at least the stuff we know where there's a question mark there. Whatever the Void is doing, it's coming right for us, and at a stupidly fast speed. If they're already getting people waking up on their own on the Atuan, we're in big trouble. Not to mention Jade and the rest of that headphone group on a planet of all things. Is it us, the ship, or is it this messed up planet? You ask.
Aradia glances at you before looking ahead again. So, if we're having a conversation that we're not having, is this a time for unsettling theories? She asks quietly, the rumble of the truck blending into her quiet tone.
I've got a few. You sigh. Aradia motions for you to start, which is probably fair since you brought this up. My mom's been doing research still, enough that she made Solix's situation happen. It's totally possible that she could be trying to do something to the Void directly, and it's screwing with its behavior. But then, I don't know where she is right now, and even if Bro does know, he wouldn't tell me. You say unhappily.
Your only comfort with this is that you know what ship she's on, and if she comes anywhere within sniffing distance of another non-pirate ship, she'll at the very least be recorded, if not outright attacked. It'd be hard to get to you unseen, despite how much stuff you deal with on planets and asteroids and the like. The fact is that space is mostly empty. It's not that hard to see a ship at range, especially with the whole fleet looking. I have another theory, Aradia begins. The Void ate Alternia and Earth. We know sentiment is tastier or whatever for it. It's got to see that from a distance. We know it's kind of alive, and things that are alive hunt. We know it ambushes people like poor Vicari.
He shouldn't have been out there.
You agree unhappily. The Balancers flag people for this exact reason, and that's what happens when you're ignored. We weren't aware of it before it got pretty close to our planets, and we only started really watching it back when we were on the run. Aradia goes on.
So, what? You think it's hungry for Somnos?
You guess. Not really. Or maybe a little. We've put a lot of sentiment here. We all know how vital getting all these resources is, the real weight of that. That's got to be appetizing. But I actually meant that Somnos is on a direct path to Skaya, Aradia says grimly.
A whole planet of people without space travel, suddenly aware of the Void, and this could be normal behavior when it's approaching an inhabited planet like that. So even if we haul ass there ASAP, it's not going to change. You say in horror.
And if we're getting bits of unreality here already, Aradia starts.
Then we need to get everyone out of here like yesterday. You finish for her.
It's just a theory, but if we get to the other base and it's getting weird, then I think we might have to go sooner than we thought. She nods.
Well, fuck. You sigh, sliding down in your seat.
You can't prove that Aradia's theory is right, but she's got a point about how many things her idea explains. It's kinda out of your hands, though. You just need to focus on what's in front of you and deal with that. In this case, you need to get to the other base, slap the balance back into order, and get a look at the scope of the problem. If Aradia is right, and this is what's normal when you approach an inhabited planet, then everyone will benefit from you focusing on what you can learn about the situation in the here and now. Then you and everyone else can learn from this. All the same, this trip is a shit show. I've barely slept. I'm gonna get some shut-eye for a few hours. You say finally. I'm mostly okay. If you just take the last couple of hours driving, then we should both be ready to do this, Aradia says, and offers a fist for you to bump. You oblige her, of course. You haul your bag over the back of the seat and dump it on the bench seat behind yours. You're about to climb over when a horrible thought creeps over you. Solix will be alright on his own, right? We left the base even relatively recently, and in a pinch he could probably try something. He figures things out quickly, right? You ask worriedly. I think things would be worse if he wasn't there. If things are destabilizing on a planet, then leaving a base with no one is a bad idea. Us being together like this wasn't the plan. It's only because of Solix slowly getting haunted that I had to stick about as long as I did, Aradia says. In fairness, there's a plan for people to be relatively interchangeable, even for the specialism that Aradia has in her actual scientific sailor role. The plan kind of went out the window the moment the shuttle landing fucked up. If they're going too light, then there's only so much you could have done, even if you were there alone, you tell her. I know. I just hope this plays out well. We'll get the base fixed. We've got it. Go sleep, Aradia tells you. You nod and roll over onto the back seat. Make sure you're strapped in, at least somewhat, then close your eyes and sleep. You have an ability, not especially unique to you, but you're very practiced at it. This ability is one that most sailors have, to a degree. When you're on a mission like this, you're essentially always on the clock. At a moment's notice, you could be ordered to rush off and do something or another. Even when you're supposed to be on a schedule, it's not a sure thing. As a result, you all become practiced at spotting a dead period of time and immediately catching a little sleep. A rogue half-hour nap isn't enough to live on, but it can push back the mental dullness of sleep deprivation. You can lay down, shut your eyes, and be out in minutes if you're in the right situation. And notably, in your case, you sleep lightly enough that you're able to snap to action in an instant. The fact that you'd learnt that skill long before you were a sailor is another matter, and one you tend to gloss over. Honestly, haha, Dave and Jake can fall asleep instantly. Funny sailor skill is a much better story than the real reason. Although, you find it harder to do when you're actually at home, so maybe you've got better or something? The point is that in this stage of sleep, you're not really asleep enough to dream, but you are out of it enough that you're not fully consciously thinking. Your mind turns ideas around and processes things without you actively trying. At first, it's Aradia's idea about the void chasing Skaya. You wonder if there'd be data from Earth and Alternia about how the void acted then, but even if there is, you wouldn't know how to read it. Your mom comes to mind and is dropped as quickly. If you'd had the time to think before you went to sleep, you might have worried that you'd have Solix on your mind, but he's not the person who comes up. It's Jade. You haven't seen or spoken to her since you broke up, and you both miss her and dread the idea of seeing her. You hope she misses you and is sad that you're not together anymore, but you also don't want her to be unhappy at all. A recipe for being disappointed no matter what happens. Semi-dreaming, you watch as your mind lays out your relationship, fanning it out before you like a deck of cards at a casino. Like drawn-out cards, you get snippets of your past with her, your first date, kissing her in the park on a chilled date with Beck at your side, dancing with her at Dirk's wedding. Obviously you were friends as well, but Jade was so much more to you. You loved her. You still do. But then, like another card drawn out and flipped over, there's Solix. Kissing him was nothing like Jade. And that's not just because you could feel the sharpness of his troll teeth or how his lips were nothing like the perfect full Cupid's bow that Jade has. When you kissed Jade, it was sweet or playful or a way of expressing how much you'd missed her or loved her. At its best, kissing Jade was a soothing balm, something perfect for you from someone who loved you without any hidden motives and was under no obligation to love you at all. That had always seemed pretty perfect to you. But Solix? Kissing him must have shot your heart rate soaring, like you were sprinting for your life instead of kissing your friend. You remember Rose used to enjoy taking the piss out of some of Karkat's more questionable literature choices, and the idea of hungry being used to describe a look, a touch, or a kiss always was so funny to you. It always seemed such a funny, cannibalistic term to throw into a scene clearly trying to evoke a more sensual tone. Well, ha fucking ha, joke's on you. When Solix kissed you, it finally clicked for you. It was like you were hungry, desperately starving for more contact, for him to touch you, kiss you more, anything. Your whole world narrowed down to him and the burning need for it to continue and not stop. Even afterwards, when you were standing there, almost watching your hand act without you as it brushed through his hair and over one of his horns, even then, you wanted that in a way you've never felt before. It's not like it's unemotional with Solix. You like him so much. Your feelings for him run deep, and his opinions and thoughts have weight in your mind. It's not just physical or anything like that, but it is definitely physical in a whole new way for you. Mentally, you hold the thought of your relationship with Jade in one hand, all of your history and feelings for her. In the other, you've got everything that's happened with Solix, and the mirrored memory of how Karkat confessing to you actually went versus how you think it could have gone. The reason songs work so well for balancing is that they tell a story, either explicitly or implicitly, in the sense that anything like that tells you something about the person who's singing it or the culture it's from. People are all about stories, the narratives of their own lives. You look back at your past and you tell yourself a story about who you are. It's one of the things that you and Rose really agree on. The story you tell yourself about who you are is incredibly important. What role do you cast yourself in? What patterns do you pick out of what's happened? What's your story about? Thinking about all of your past is too time-consuming, and lots of people can't stand to do it at all. So, as a shorthand, you think about your story. You don't think of yourself as a poor disabled kid finally cured, and when you sense that other people have that role in their stories, it pisses you off. From your view, you were basically blind for most of your life, but you sensed things other people could never. You saw sides to your biological parents that no one else did, and you got the sight you have now out of necessity. The story you tell yourself about you is different. You were the kid who got put through experiments and complied to protect your siblings. They never knew it and aren't ever going to. Things got better for you when you moved to the Atuan. You got 2 more sisters and a parent that actually loved you. Your brothers got everything they needed. They got to be Dirk and Hal, and you're pretty sure Bro would never have allowed them that as long as they lived at home. You got to make friends for the first time. You got to belong. You met Jade and she asked you out. You fell in love. You grew up with a family that loved you and a girlfriend that loved you. You got to be normal and happy. It came at a price, but you paid that. That was nothing new, and it was cheaper than before, so whatever. You came from chaos and strife, and you eventually found stability and love. That's the story you tell yourself about who you are. This new aspect is like a tablecloth yanked out from under a tower of cards. If things with Jade weren't real, if your story wasn't true, then what? What has your life here been instead? Have you just been playing a role in a story you wished was true? Have you been following lines that Bro wrote so you'd fall for a smart woman and play happy families even when you had thought you weren't following his script? Did you just drag Jade into your story so you could tell yourself you're content and happy? Did you make her an extra in a fake story? The weight of 10 years presses down on your chest, making your sternum and ribs creak under the weight of that idea. Guilt and fear mount higher and higher into a pillar in your chest, fit to crush you to death. Your eyes snap open, and a moment later you realize why. The truck's decelerating. You sit up and catch the way Aradia's eyes flick to you in the mirror. It takes a moment to rummage through your bag and grab your canteen so you can get a drink and swish your mouth out. It's funny how, even when you're not fully asleep, your mouth can still taste different, just like it does when you wake up from a whole night asleep. There's probably a reason for that, something to do with biology or chemistry. You wouldn't say you feel mentally calmer for having a short sleep, but you feel a little more like you've processed things. You've not got any answers, but you've at least started filing things away in your mind for future thought, which leaves your brain more space to process right now. The truck comes to a stop, and Aradia puts the brakes on properly, then turns in her seat to look at you. Do you feel that too? Aradia asks. Damara flickers into view, and Aradia tilts her head, almost like she's listening. Maybe for her it does have an audio feel to it. Sometimes the void tickles the parts of your thing sponge that process sound, and you can pick up a static kind of hiss. Sometimes it's touch, sometimes sight. Without your ghost with you, the abilities any of you has to deal with the void are limited. It's not nothing. You can still sense it and mess with it. But if you're wanting to make any real impact on a large scale, you need Bro. You summon him with scarcely a thought, and he appears in the back of the truck with you. You two aren't balancing yet, and you'll get a better feel for things when you get to that point, but you get something. It's definitely odd. It's almost like a faint pressure on your whole being. Technically, you're under more pressure than normal now, given that Somnos has higher gravity, but it's not that.
It feels like pressure. Faint, but
There, you say slowly. Like the air's too tight or something. Aradia agrees.
In your chest? Mechanical pressure from the outside in, or a tight pressure like anxiety or tachycardia?
Bro asks. The double-edged sword of having Bro around is that he is always helpful when it comes to balancing, and he does know a lot of the science. He's actually interested in how all of this works, unlike GHB. The downside is that it's Bro at all, and being around him as a person is the worst. As for him trying to gather data about balancing or the void, yeah, not a good time.
He's asking if it feels like something pressing on us or an anxious, heart-racing kind of thing.
You relay to Aradia. Hard to say. I'm nervous about the situation already. It could be an anxious paranoia-inducing thing if people are hearing things and it's coming across like that, Aradia answers.
It feels like outside pressure to me. We should switch. I'll drive and you catch what amount of sleep you can, and then we deal with this thing.
You tell her. Aradia nods in agreement, and both of you do the slightly awkward maneuver of swapping places when neither of you wants to actually open the truck doors to get out. The truck's warm now, and you'll just make it cold again if you do that. With the clumsy ballet of your shift change done, you start driving. Damara's gone off somewhere, either to check out what's around you or to dip into Aradia's dreaming mind to talk to her more there. You don't really ask how other people deal with their ghosts. It just invites comparison that you don't want. For a change, Bro is sitting with you, not doing much, though he looks like he's thinking. Finally, he decides to share.
You've got to check if and how that kid can balance, or else he's going to fuck things up on the shuttle,
Bro says.
That's the plan.
You answer him simply, not engaging in debating anything he calls Solix.
If he can affect shit but can't control it when we launch, you're going to have to knock him out,
he adds. This is true, but it's also so obviously true that you're suspicious of why he's telling you that.
It'd be interesting to see how he reacts to...
Bro starts, and with a fair amount of focus, you tune him out so his words don't reach you at all. You're not about to play doctor with Solix. Wait, no, that sounded weird. You're not going to help Bro run experiments on how various medications affect Solix just for the sake of his own curiosity. Bro is aware of when you've tuned him out and decides to just leave instead of sit there pouting or whatever. Honestly, his absence is something of a relief. Or it is until the boredom of driving kicks in. The landscape is kind of dull where you are, and you need to keep your eyes on where you're going anyway. There's no point in worrying about what you're going to find at the other base when you get there, because you can't do jack shit about it now. You can't talk to Aradia because she's sleeping, and Damara and Bro aren't here either. You're trying to keep your awareness on the path you're taking, but that only takes up so much brain space. The rest of your mind starts to wander after a bit. At first, you're contemplating how Solix might even balance with two ghosts. Is it going to be using one or the other at a time, or will he be able to work in both directions at once? Assuming that Mituna and Psionic don't neutralize each other just by existing, which, given that they've been around each other just fine, you're going to guess they won't. If Solix could do both at once, it could be really useful. You're not happy that Solix is stuck in this situation, but at least if this works out, he'll be in a uniquely powerful position when it comes to balancing. You're not especially inclined to mentally chew over exactly how you're going to test his balancing ability. As far as you know, he's still got to pick a song, and you've got to deal with this bass stuff first. You'll get to it and deal with it then. It's whatever. Future stuff. A few minutes of peaceful driving pass before your bored mind offers up another thought. Or, less a thought, more of a memory. Specifically, Solix's hand on your face as he kissed you, and the feel of his hair and his horns when you were getting a little too personal with him. You should focus on driving. A smart idea. The dumb part of your brain nods at this and then switches on a projector, so you get the mental image of the way Solix looked at you in that moment. It wasn't just that he looked at you like he wanted this, though that was there. It's not like you've not seen desire on people's faces before. You're not even a stranger to it being directed at you. People have made a pass at you before without knowing about Jade, and obviously Jade was into you. It's not that. Sure, that was there, but it was more than that. It's the way Jade used to look at you. He said he had feelings for you, but your heart thuds in your chest, and you firmly decide to focus on the road instead. You mostly manage it, trying to keep a running mental chatter about what you can see, or counting, or going through the alphabet backwards. Something to occupy your mental monologue. Even so, every now and then a snippet of memory, emotion, or probably imagination at this point, slips through. When you see the base in the distance, you're grateful to wake Aradia up and start to ease your white-knuckle grip on the steering wheel. The plan, Aradia starts to say, but is interrupted by a yawn. Right. I drive in through the windows, you run in and grab the cash, I drive us off and we retire to a tropical planet with martinis. You fill in for her. No, that's the heist plan. Someday we'll pull that off, but not today, Aradia says with a grin. I don't know. We've already got the balaclavas here somewhere, you say with a wistful little sigh. Aradia snort laughs in that very unladylike and thoroughly charming way that you've always appreciated and clambers up to the front with you. You want to stress this, as much as you and her have her moments of not seeing eye to eye, you do really like her. When you were reasonably new to the ship and your generation of balancers started cropping up, you really liked that it was you and her. Gamzee was kind of a lot to deal with when you were both younger, freshly traumatized and not fully versed in how to handle your feelings or your ghosts. You and Aradia always clicked, and balancing with her is always smooth as glass. The plan for here is this, I think. We go in and find Polypa, let her know that we're there and what we're doing, and if there's been any changes, she can tell us. We find someone who had one of those headsets, figure them out, then balance and see what's going on. If anyone asks, we're here to take back some stuff because of the shuttle changeover, Aradia says as she settles into her seat. Yeah, we can go talk to any of those 9 people. You nod. 10. Jade was one of those people. You can't just avoid her forever. Aradia corrects you. I'm not avoiding Jade, you insist. Out of the corner of your eye, you can see the flat look that Aradia is giving you. I'm not. I'm just trying to not see or talk to her
for a while, you say. Though, that doesn't really help your case. You can hear how that sounds. You basically just divined avoiding someone. Look, you have a finite number of problems you can deal with, and you're not signing yourself up for extra ones right now. You're pretty close to your limit of things you can cope with.
I understand that. Someone really should come up with a word to describe trying to not see or talk to someone,
Aradia says with cheerful malice. You only need one hand to drive, really. It's totally fine to use the other to instigate a childish slap fight from across the truck.
You guide the truck into the base's vehicle area and park up. You switch everything off and engage all the locks you're supposed to. Not to stop anyone else from taking it, but more so it doesn't end up rolling away or something. One time when you were on a desert-type planet, Jake forgot to put the parking brake on in his truck. The memory of glancing across the camp to see Jake frantically sprinting after his vehicle as it careened backwards down a sand dune will always stick with you. It makes you remember to put the brakes on, that's for sure. Look, sometimes you're the main character, and sometimes you're a cautionary tale to everyone else. Compacted snow crunches underfoot as you hop out of the truck. You walk around the back, and Aradia meets up with you there. As you head to the entrance of the base, both Bro and Damara flicker into view next to you. Damara says something, not that you can understand it. If you had to guess, you'd say that she's observing that the base doesn't feel especially weird at first glance. There's still that feeling of pressure, but not much else. First step, find Polypa and catch each other up on the current situation. Well, if you want to be more accurate, step 1 is to get inside the base and take off your outdoor clothes. Step 2 is grabbing and changing into a spare pair of base clothes. After that, you can get properly inside and track down Polypa. Okay, all changed. You're still going to say Polypa is step 1, and the other things were like preliminary or something. Step 1. As it happens, you take one step into the proper portion of the base and come pretty much face to face with Jade. The plan is already off the rails, and you've not even completed step 1. Fuck. You say dumbly. Dave, Jade gasps. Here's a fun thing about growing up with very little eyesight and having a childhood where you were extensively studied. You get a pretty good sixth sense for when someone is watching you. Right now, you can feel an uncomfortably large number of people watching you and Jade both. Hi? You say uneasily, as everyone around pretends that they're not watching, but absolutely are watching this long-term couple who super recently broke up and are now talking for the first time. Like, oh no, I'm not watching. I'm just very intently staring at my phone and glancing your way every so often while hanging on your every word. What are you doing here? I thought you two were pretty permanently at the other base, Jade says, looking at you and then at Aradia. We're here to see Polypa about the shuttle thing. I'm gonna go find her, Aradia says brightly, and hurries off before you can go with her. You scowl at Aradia's back as she retreats, and then turn your gaze back to Jade. Seeing her stings. You're not gonna pretend that it doesn't. You still love her. That's not something you can turn off, but your breakup is still fresh in your mind. You can practically hear the smash of that necklace you had made for her. It sounds a lot like your heart breaking. Jade breaks eye contact and looks around unhappily at the people pretending like they're not listening. Come with me. We can go to my room, just somewhere a little less public, Jade suggests softly. You nod mutely and feel the number of things you can deal with going wrong tick down by one. In a small act of mercy, Bro doesn't follow you, mostly because discussions about feelings aren't really his thing. No doubt he'll be demanding to know later whether or not you and Jade are back together. Ugh. Jade leads you through a basically identical base to your own, only her room is up on the top floor. Out of some small act of mercy, her roommate isn't there right now, so it's just the two of you. You close the door behind you with a firm click when you're both inside, and then it's just you and her. Jade isn't someone you usually feel uncomfortable around. That's not to say she's always a flawless ray of sunshine or anything. She's still a real person, but it's hard to remember the last time you truly felt uneasy around her. Worse still is the fact that Jade looks just as unsure about you. Something that you never wanted to happen.
I'm sorry. I'm being weird.
You apologize. Jade looks surprised at your words, and then her expression softens into something a little sad. No, you're not, really. I think this whole situation is just kind of really weird. Jade laughs weakly. You smile. It's faint, but it's there. Some of the tension between you two eases. I've been trying to give you space. I didn't want to keep rubbing salt in the wound or anything. Jade starts.
No, I get that. I was trying to wait to talk to you until I could be sure I wouldn't send you anything hugely embarrassing or say anything that'd make this worse for both of us. I get it. You weren't happy, so you left. That's not something I want to argue with, you know? You say with a shrug.
I mean, that's not exactly... Jade trails off and gnaws at her bottom lip for a moment.
Not exactly... You prompt her.
It's not that I wasn't happy. I was happy. That wasn't the problem. Jade sighs.
That's not what she'd said. Jade wasn't happy anymore, so she broke up with you. That's what happened, wasn't it?
I was happy most of the time. A lot of it. I love you. You're great. You're fun to be with, and you make me happy. I just wasn't happy with, I don't know, us, how things were. It wasn't enough for me. Do you remember that fight we had about Rose moving out of your hive instead of you moving in with me? Jade asks.
Yeah, I know I kind of bit your head off about that, so I'm sorry if...
You start, but Jade cuts you off. No, that's... See, this is what I mean. Jade interrupts you. You stare at Jade. She laces her hands behind her neck and tips her head back with a tense sigh. She paces for a few moments before she starts talking. Didn't feel like enough, even though I loved you and you're great to be around. You're who I wanted. I knew you had your reasons for wanting to stay where you were. We talked about it before, but I wasn't satisfied with how we were. It was like this unbearable itch that just kept building, and what we had wasn't fixing that, no matter how much I loved you. I felt like if I could just get you to move in, then that would somehow be the thing that stopped that, and I could be completely happy. I was so desperate to make it work that I pushed you too hard on something I knew you weren't okay with, Jade says in a rush.
If I'd known it was that important, I'd have just dealt with it. I hate moving, and it makes me feel like shit, but I'd have got over it.
You tell her unhappily. That is exactly why I broke up with you, Jade says simply. Hearing that is like a knife through your heart, and you're pretty sure it must show on your face because Jade hurries to clarify her point. There's nothing wrong with wanting to live apart. Lots of people do, and I don't care how objectively good or bad your reasons were. It doesn't matter. You didn't want to do something, we'd agreed on it, and then I pushed over to try and make myself feel better. What terrifies me is that you probably would have moved in with me eventually if I kept pushing at it. And that feeling of not being enough wouldn't have gone away. The problem with us wasn't geography. So then what? What else do I try to do or to get you involved in, all because I'm looking for the one thing that'll make things feel good enough? Jade says helplessly.
You wouldn't have done that. That fight was just a one-time thing. You've always been so good with me.
You tell her quietly. But I did do that. When I see myself in that moment, I can't stand it. I love you too much to do that to you, Dave. I do love you. You're my best friend. We've spent so much time together, and I wanted that to last forever, but instead of admitting that all that was true and at the same time it wasn't enough for me was too hard. So I tried to make you bend to fit me in the hopes it'd fix things. Jade whispers.
But you weren't trying to hurt me, and I love you. All relationships have compromises. You're not some supervillain mind-controlling me. You weren't giving me an ultimatum or anything.
You insist. She's not the bad guy here. I know. I never want to hurt you, and you'd never want me to not be happy, but it just wasn't right. I don't regret a second of being with you, but I couldn't waste your time like that, or mine. And I don't want to force you into a mold of something I want. It's not like you're terrible at telling me what you want or what you're not okay with, but I'm pretty sure you would have folded if I kept pushing, and that thought makes me sick, Jade says miserably.
You're acting like you're the bad guy here. You're not, you tell her firmly.
I was mostly trying to stop before I actually became the bad guy. I wanted to make it clear that you didn't do anything wrong. If who you are and what you want isn't enough for me, then that doesn't mean you're wrong. It just means we're wrong for each other. This isn't on you. We grew into people who weren't a good fit anymore, that's all, and that can't be fixed, Jade says with a deep sigh.
You're acting like I'm blameless here, you snap, anger welling up in you out of nowhere.
You are, Jade says immediately.
Yeah, well, I'm not. I'm pretty sure I just wasted 10 years of your life, you retort hotly, your hands clenching at your sides.
Our relationship wasn't a waste, she starts, but you cut her off.
It is if I'm not straight, you almost yell at her. Jade's eyes go comically wide behind her glasses, and you reflexively clap your hand over your mouth and glance about in paranoia in case someone else saw or heard that.
Do you want to explain that? Jade asks warily.
You falter. You can't look at her, it's too much. You back up until your back hits the wall and slide down, your knees tucked to your chest like that'll protect you somehow. Jade crouches with you, her knees clicking slightly as she does. Extra gravity does that. She tilts her head and looks at you patiently, her long, loosely braided hair falling over her shoulder. After a moment, you realize that your hands are so tightly gripping fistfuls of your borrowed sweatpants that they're shaking from the strain. You always said you thought I was... you try and fail to speak.
Deep breath,
Jade suggests softly and cautiously puts her hand on your knee. You breathe in, hold it, and slowly breathe out. You always said I was ace because of the sex thing, but I never agreed and whatever, right? Because I was with you. Didn't matter, you say uneasily.
You don't have to label anything, Dave. I said that before, Jade says soothingly.
Yeah, you're beautiful and I love you, and it's not like how I know Kanai is pretty or anything, and I love Terezi, we're tight, but I'm not in love with her. Bro was always so shit, and I know everyone else in my family's the way it is when it comes to sexuality, so whatever. You know you're not making sense. Jade is looking at you patiently with understanding and compassion on her face. Guilt rises up in you like bile up your throat. I kissed Solux, you choke out. What? Jade starts. After you broke up with me. Yesterday? You say hurriedly. Remembering when things happened is kind of hard when you're not sleeping normally. Okay, Jade says slowly with a nod, like she wants you to go on. I liked it. Fuck, I really liked it. I actually wanted... You know, when we talked about sex, and I said I would if you wanted to, but you weren't into it if I wasn't. I could picture that with you, but this... You trail off in wide-eyed horror.
You wanted... Oh, you're into men, Jade says, like it's all dawning on her.
You don't bring up the point that Solix mentioned about how he's not sure if that is a true descriptor of him. Not your crisis to share. I don't know what the fuck it means. Like, am I? Is it just him? I love you. I know that's real, so what the fuck? And if I am gay, then I've been lying to myself about that all this time, and I wasted 10 years of your life on me when you could have been with someone better. You choke out, tears flooding in your eyes.
You stop that right now, Jade says and bops you on the head. Really gently, but still. Nothing with you was a waste, Dave. I love you. I loved being with you. I was happy for 99.9999999% of the time. I just needed more as I grew up. That's all. Even if you are gay, I don't care. I was happy, and I know you were happy too. That's not a waste. Let's be real. Do you know what most teenage boys are like? You think I'd have been better off with someone else? No way. Jade snaps at you, giving you the kind of look you know leaves no room for arguing. You want to argue, to tell her that you're the worst, that you're a failure, that you let her down, that all the awful tendrils of bros' beliefs that have seeped into you were really right after all. You'd never believe a bad word about any of your siblings or anyone else for not being straight. You would laugh that kind of bigotry right out the door, but when it's you, the voice in your head spitting venom at you sounds an awful lot like Bro's. You won't let his rules apply to anyone else, but it's different with you. I don't want to be gay, you say in 2-point font, yet Jade still somehow hears you. She rubs your knee soothingly and leans closer so her arms are wrapped around your legs and you're getting something close to a hug. You might not be. Sexuality is complex, even between humans. You add cross-species into the mix, and quadrants too, then it's a minefield. Maybe it's different with trolls. Maybe it's not. Maybe your romantic and sexual orientations are different. Maybe you're romantically attracted to people regardless of gender, and asexual just with humans. With trolls, maybe you're bi or gay. There's a million things that could describe what you feel, Dave. None of them are bad. You didn't waste my time. Honestly, if it turns out that you are more compatible with someone else, then it makes me feel a little less like I've destroyed something you want to hold on to. The idea that there's something out there that's more true to this makes me feel even more certain that us ending was for the best. I know this whole topic is hard for you, but you really, really didn't waste my time. I loved being with you. I wouldn't change that, Jade says softly. You nod unhappily. You'd wish things were back to how they were, when things seemed simple. You wish you could go back to a point in time before Jade ended things, before you knew what it was like to need Solix to kiss you. Things were easier when your old story about your life fit better. You'd really wish for it if it wasn't for the fact that Jade obviously wouldn't have been happy with that. You're also not sure how much you believe Jade's fear about herself. Not that you think she's lying or anything. No, it's just that you know what manipulative people look like, how Mom and Bro had their hands full with puppet strings. Jade's nothing like that. She loved you. She'd never do that, right? Or maybe her being good is why she refused to do that. You don't know anymore. It's all too complicated. Still, Jade says slowly, looking at you with a smile. You and Solix, huh? I don't even know. I only kissed him because I needed to prove to myself that I wasn't into him and there was a difference between what I felt for him and you, but nope. Now everything is complicated and confusing, you say in despair. I think your type is just hot nerds, Jade grins. You cover your face with your hands and let out a noise of despair that sounds a little like a dying whale. Or what you imagine that'd sound like, since you've not been around a dying whale. Jade nudges your legs apart at the knee and wriggles her way closer to you so she can wrap you in a hug. She ends up settling with her head on your shoulder, laying against your body between your legs, her arms wrapped around your middle. You're holding her back as well, emotionally wrung out and fragile. She's still Jade. She's still the woman you love, the one you've loved since you were a teenager. That's not going away, and you don't want it to. You get the feeling from the way that she's holding you that she doesn't want it to change either. I was so scared that I was going to lose you when I broke up with you. I didn't want that. I didn't want you to hate me and want nothing to do with me. I didn't want things to stay the same, but I didn't want everything changing. That's probably selfish, Jade says quietly to your collarbone, like your bone marrow can hold her secrets deep inside of you. It hurts, kind of, thinking about you and being near you, knowing it's over. But if I'm not thinking about it, it feels the same. I still love you, even though we can't go back. You confide into her thick black hair. Jade squeezes you a little tighter, and you press your face into her hair. See, all this emotional honesty shit is the kind of stuff Bro hates.
even if he wants you two back together so he can try to get another generation of your stupid family.
I'm glad things are okay between us, that I've not ruined everything. Things have been so crazy here. I feel like I'm losing it. It's probably stress or something.
Jade mumbles, and you tense all over. The headset thing? You ask warily, and Jade sits up and looks at you.
You know about that? She asks.
Solix told us. Cooper asked him to look into it, so... You trail off.
Oh, and you and Solix...
Jade leaves that sentence dangling meaningfully. There's no me and Solix. I don't know... I'm not sure enough of anything to know what I even want for dinner, let alone putting an and between me and anyone else. You say hastily, though Jade gives you a sly look. The amusement slips off her face a little, and she looks down at the ground unhappily.
You know about it, then? Cooper says there's nothing wrong with the headsets that he can find, but it's not just me. Other people are hearing it, too. It's voices. I know it is, but I can't ever catch what they're saying. I want to follow it and find where it's coming from, but I'm not silly enough to wander off on a planet on my own. I'd think I was going crazy, or that it really was just stress, but it's not just me. But maybe we're all stressed? It could be a mass hysteria thing, and obviously the mission is incredibly important, and what happened to your shuttle was terrifying, so... I don't know.
Jade slumps a little in defeat. You don't know what to say. What can you say?
Do you think I'm crazy?
Jade asks you earnestly, her bright green eyes imploring you to help her. No, of course not, you say immediately.
Which means that there is something going on, that these voices are something. I mean, maybe it's some technology on this planet that's doing it. Maybe there was some old civilization here, and the tech problems we're having is our stuff butting up against that, or something. But if I can look in the right place, maybe I can...
Jade keeps talking, but you stop listening. Or, you stop hearing, at least. Void stuff for you isn't fully visual. It can be, but mostly it's an extra sense you've got. You can feel it, though, and if you were to say that it's visual, you know what you'd see. The pole of the future, white and clouded around Jade's head, blotting out her vision to everything else. The same need to know, to see the truth, a desperate hunger for it that you saw in Vakari. You know how it went for him. You won't let Jade go the same way. You catch her hands and hold them, looking her right in the eyes. You can tell people when they're in danger of working things out themselves, if only to stop knowledge spreading like catching fire. Also, what's her grandmother going to do about it when she finds out? Break you up? Too late. Make you work more? Sure, whatever. It's a transgression you're allowed, and the circumstances are right, so she can deal with it. Of course, she wants her grandchildren to be cheerfully oblivious, to live not knowing the truth about the real danger that chases you. You get that. Ignorance is bliss and all. She wasn't happy when Jake woke up to all of this, and you doubt she'll be happy about this, but life isn't fair. I need to tell you something really important, and I need you to promise that you're going to take me seriously and not tell people what I'm going to tell you. You say gravely.
Of course,
Jade says, seemingly uncertain about the direction you've suddenly taken her theories about what's out there. Okay, you say quietly, and run your thumbs over her fingers. Jade never had delicate hands. Her fingers are tan and long, but strong too. The kind of hands that play bass well, that clamber and climb. When her fingers would lace between yours and she'd squeeze your hand tight, you always felt safe and held. Even though your hands are calloused from your work, they're a little more delicate, or maybe spindly is the word. Hands for art and playing the violin, just like June's got pianist fingers. You like Jade's hands, so as you hold them in yours, you take in the last few moments of her not being able to see the glowing tattoo on your own hands. Let me get through as much as I can. I know it's going to sound like a lot. You warn her, and Jade nods. The void isn't this mindless force of the universe. It's actively eating planets in a very alive kind of way, and it's hunting people. Not that that's entirely new. It always has, but it changed at some point. Don't know why. Trolls and humans are instinctively afraid of it, and used to lurk in empty places, picking people off. Empty oceans, isolated towns. We're afraid of that stuff because of it. It's like loneliness, emptiness, death. It used to just exist like that, and then it changed and started taking whole planets. But it still does that other stuff. You tell her quickly.
Jade hesitates, and you forge on anyway.
I know how that sounds. I know it sounds like superstition, but it's true. That's what the voices that you're hearing are. We're all alone on this planet, and it's luring you out like those fish with lures, but there are people, I'm one of them, who can influence it. There's this balance between the future and the past, and staying neutral gives us a kind of camouflage, and people like me use that to hide our ships. Kind of like if the void was a shark that senses electric current to hunt. Like the kind your heart has when it beats. Except we can hide that and blend us in so we don't get eaten. Only, it's going wrong at the moment. When it gets closer, you get this thing that we call unreality. You start to get things happening that shouldn't. People hear things sometimes, or see them. You explain in a rush.
This all sounds pretty unproven. I'm not saying you're lying or anything, but... Jade says slowly.
No, I get it. Woman of science and all. Let me up. You sigh.
Jade gets to her feet and pulls you up by your hands, rushing you to your feet so you stumble into her. Oh, swoon. Wait, no. Jade isn't yours to swoon over anymore, but you are still swooning over this gorgeous woman pulling you to your feet and up against her. Is that... You'd say it was hot, but it's not desire like making out with Solix was, but it's surely in that neighborhood, right? So, what? Romantic swooning? Sexy swooning? Aesthetic swooning? What the fuck? Wait. No! One crisis at a time, Strider. Gotta have proof, right? That's how you do, like, a science to something. You say. Like there's a version of you in your own head hearing the words coming out of your mouth. And that version of you has his head in his hands in despair. Science, yeah. Jade nods, barely holding back an entirely warranted laugh. My shuttle skipped forward, faster than it should have been able to. You know that. You start. I'm pretty sure I hit my head and there was some sort of... I don't know. Jade frowns. Yeah, I think there's some kind of evolutionary thing at play there that makes people dismiss things. I can't prove that. I don't know how much Mom looked into it, but I'm pretty sure most people instinctively don't think about it as a sort of survival strategy. Anyway, the point is that I made the shuttle do that. I had to fix what Aradia was doing with your shuttle. She's one of those people who can balance things too, and things got out of control. I overcorrected, and I ended up having to jump my shuttle to deal with it. You explain. Jade's expression is one of concern now. You're pretty clearly not joking, and you're not much for pranks. You're not the type to try to one-up your family on their own things. I'll prove it, you tell her. Flash stepping isn't too hard for you. You picked it up after the void shattered Bro's soul into 1,000 jigsaw pieces and jammed shards of his soul into your own. You never let your mom see it, and Bro only saw you do it once before he died, and his inability to prove it was the one shred of power you had to yourself. From here to the other end of the room is nothing. Jade's jaw drops, and you see it all click into place. She's always been so smart, and she's not going to deny proof that's right in front of her. All the same, you have to brace yourself for what comes next. You steel yourself as Jade launches into questions about how you did that, how that's possible, what that means for physics, what's your range, where does the power to do that come from? She starts asking about how it works, and if you know how, what someone could do to figure it out, and... There's a thing you can do. Not everyone can, but you and Rose can. There's a muscle somewhere in your head called the tensor tympani. It attaches to some part of your inner ear, and you can tense it at will and make this rumbly kind of sound. It's such a small muscle that you can do it without anyone knowing to look at you. For someone who relied on their hearing as much as you did, it's an interesting way to distract that sense. To focus on something other than what you're really hearing. Anyway, now you can see I'm not nuts. You start, cutting over the things that Jade was saying that you decidedly do not want to hear. Dave, how can you do that? How does this... how, in general? Jade gasps.
That's not really important right now. What is important is that I'm telling you not to go looking for those voices. People die doing that shit. Vakari heard that kind of call without understanding it, and you know how that turned out. You warn her.
It wasn't a suit malfunction, Jade whispers.
It wasn't. You agree.
Jade seems to reel from that information for a second before she finally looks back at you again. How long has this been going on? She asks finally.
Well, some of the Void's behavior has affected humans and trolls on our planets long before our worlds ended, but like I said, it changed to eat whole planets since then, so you start.
I meant you knowing about this, Jade clarifies.
Oh, the not telling her thing. Right, that makes more sense. Since I was a kid, my parents studied all of this, and I was a test subject. I'd really appreciate it to a frankly embarrassing, insane degree if we could not talk about that part. I've already had my breakdown quota for the last 24 hours. Way over, actually, so if we could skate on past that, it'd be great. I'm also gonna guess you're mad that I didn't tell you, which is fair, only it's literally top secret information, and if I did, I'd be in so much trouble. Not to mention, telling you would have put you at more risk. I'm only doing it now because going looking for the Void like that is way more dangerous. Also, on a feel free to be mad at me kind of note, having to deal with this is kind of hell, and I didn't really want you looking at me like a broken former test subject. You say in a rush.
The idea of Jade seeing you like that makes you sick. You were weak and helpless back then, and no way anyone could know that about you and still want anything to do with you. It was probably selfish to hide it, even if you had other better reasons to keep her from knowing. You're not all Evo psych about it. You don't think shit like women want strong, manly men because they're programmed that way. But it's hard to imagine anyone who knows about everything that was done to you still finding anything worthwhile in you. All that'd be left is the kind of condescending pity reserved for a small animal that needs to be put down out of kindness. You know people would see you as a damaged, tortured kid. You know it. Like, word of God kind of certainty. Weak, small, pathetic, not a man, but a fucked up kid. Don't talk about it or let people in. Just give people bits of you and be that. That voice in your soul is so certain, so judgmental and harsh that you're starting to wonder whose voice it is. Because Solix saw through your shit, your fragmented lies to keep people happy, and he found out about your past. You were so sure he'd never want you, because how could he? He knew about your past, so obviously he'd never see you as anything like that. Solix made his view on what he wanted very clear, and it didn't match what you thought was supposed to happen. Jade hasn't recoiled in disgust either, and she's not looking at you with pity. She looks shocked and pissed off. You know what? No, your biological parents sucked, and this explains a lot about how you feel about them, so I'm just gonna go with that. Jade says, and shakes her head sharply.
Cool, you say, dumbly.
Who knows about this? Jade asks.
Not everyone. That'd be an awful idea, you say.
Why? Jade questions.
You sigh and start to explain in a little more detail about how knowing about this stuff is dangerous. Not knowing at all and having no contact with this is the safest. Then knowing about it is next. Then knowing about it and having some kind of contact with the Void. And most dangerous is not knowing and seeking it out, which probably isn't true, actually. Your situation of fucking around in the Void and finding out clearly is the most perilous. Balancers aren't known for dying of old age, after all. You'd just rather not tell her that, because she'll only worry about you, and there's nothing she can do. My mom did a whole bunch of science about this stuff, and it's just how it is. We have to keep quiet to protect people. Sometimes people figure this stuff out on their own, either because they saw something they can't explain, or because they've got some sensitivity to this kind of thing. You say finally.
Like Garadia's ability to talk to ghosts? Jade asks.
Yeah. except Aradia's like me. She's a balancer. Same as Solix now, too. That's really new. Like, this week kind of new, you say. You feel really shitty for Solix. He's old enough that he knows what life is like before he became a balancer. He'll miss it. One pro of your fucked up childhood is that your life has never been okay, so it's not like you can miss it. Honestly, having a family that loves you and a parent that doesn't exploit you for science means that the last 10 years are basically the best your life has ever been. Gamzee gets you on that. Fuck, you miss Gamzee. At least around him, you don't have to be careful not to horrify an optimist.
Who knows exactly? I'm going to assume my grandmother knows, since she's the captain. You can't be doing this secretly behind her back, right? Jade asks.
She knows. Most of her higher-ups do as well. It's all classified, but still. Us balancers keep her ship safe in exchange for everything she does. Not that we'd get a whole ship killed on principle or anything. Jake knows. Anyone with this knows. You can see that, right? You ask, holding your hand out to her. Jade's eyes all but bug out of her head in shock, and she snatches your hand up to stare at it.
When did you get this? She gasps.
You give her the rundown about the ink and how it all works, all the theories with that. You promise to get Jade her own one later so that other people know that she knows. Jade turns your hand around in hers, looking at your tattoo very carefully.
Exactly how many of these balancing people are there? You said about you and Aradia and Solix now. Who else? Jake? She asks.
No, he just knows about this stuff. And Solix is new. He's not done it at all yet. His situation's kind of weird. We're still trying to work out if he can do the job at all. We were going to try and figure it out today, but then he heard about what was going on with your headsets and thought it sounded suspicious, which it was, so. Gamzee's one. Fazzer was, but you trail off sadly, and Jade nods unhappily.
Who else, though?
She asks after a few seconds. That's it. That's it for our ship. Other ships have their own. We talk to each other and keep each other updated on things that are going on, like this big wave of weirdness that's coming from the void getting too close now, and you falter as your palm husk buzzes. You check it with a quiet apology to Jade as you do. If it's not important, you're going to ignore it and continue what you're saying, but you can't ignore your bosses.
Dave, where are you? We need to go.
I'm in Jade's room. I had to tell her a few things. Solix wasn't wrong about this at all.
Right, that's great, but we need to get outside now.
What?
Polypa said she's got word, and we need to get people back to our base ready to go ASAP.
Wait, are we actually scrubbing now?
It's not final yet, but it's looking that way.
Shit. Meet you at the truck.
Your face is making a pretty alarming expression, Jade tells you, clearly concerned, even if she's trying to keep things lighthearted.
Yeah, I think we might be evacuating the base. Keep that to yourself. I'm gonna go find Aradia at the truck and see what she says. You tell her and pocket your palm husk.
Because of all of this stuff?
Jade asks, gesturing vaguely at nothing and probably meaning the void. Not sure, but probably. You hesitate for a moment. Come with me. There's training about what to do if a mission is abruptly called off. There's procedures. Obviously, no one plans to leave anyone behind ever, and that's never happened with your ship, but it has happened before to other ships. Sudden, dangerous weather changes or unexpected tectonic activity, meaning you have to go and go now. If someone's too far away, then you might not be able to get them away safely. It's the stuff of nightmares, and crews bend over backwards to avoid that happening, not just because of how horrible that would be for the person left behind, but for what it'd do to the psyche of a ship's population to know they did that. You don't leave people behind. It's never the plan. If you are getting set to scrub this mission early, then everyone is going to be brought to this base and then shunted out to the shuttle. The fact that you're down to one shuttle now ought to have limited the range that Polypa was willing to let people travel from her base. You should be able to get everyone away safely. Playing favorites isn't something that should come into it, but if you keep Jade with you and take her to the shuttle personally, then you can be assured that she'll get off the planet. You don't intend to leave anyone behind, but you definitely won't risk Jade being left here.
Jade follows you down and out of the base, the pair of you hastily dressing before hurrying outside. As you get to your truck, you can see Aradia talking to Polypa. Polypa has her glove held between her teeth and her undersuit glove pulled back so she can pry some papers apart with her claws.
"Oh my goodness, you too!"
Jade exclaims, pointing at Polypa's hand with its glowing tattoo. You bat Jade's hand down and give Jade a look.
"No noticing this stuff, no talking about it in public,"
you say in a sharp whisper.
"You know what? I've got enough going on that I'm not asking. Take her with you, fill the rest of the seats, take food and water, vital supplies too. Here,"
Polypa says, and hands Aradia the slip of paper. Code yellow, got it. Aradia nods grimly. Polypa nods and marches off to the other trucks. It's not anxiety or fear as such that's settling in your stomach. It's more of a heavy awareness that shit is suddenly getting very real. There are codes for all sorts of things, some of which are just standard procedure. Getting the shuttle ready to leave and ensuring everyone on board is code gold. Mostly it's just referred to as stage gold because it always happens, and everyone being on board and things being ready to go is kind of the gold standard for shit going well. Yellow is adjacent to that. A lot of it is the same. Get everyone on the shuttles and get them ready to go. But it's more of a fearful thing because it's only yellow if something's gone really wrong to mean that you have to do it now. Yellow means it's all gone south and you're going as soon as you can. As Daja jokes that it's code yellow because hearing about it could make you piss your pants in fear. Something that's not unwarranted, seeing as the paper Aradia was just handed has launch codes on it. If things progress, then you could use those to launch the shuttle and go if it meant that'd save more lives than waiting. I'll load the truck, Aradia says grimly, tucking the paper into her pocket.
"Get inside, grab anything you can't leave behind, and be back out here in 5. I'm getting other people," you order Jade.
You don't really outrank her, not generally speaking on the ship. Your jobs don't really align in such a way where it's ever a thing that matters. But on a mission, you outrank her and all her science specialists. Unofficially speaking, when you're on a mission, balancers like you outrank everyone, bar Nepeta and Polypa. And on matters of balance, you don't need their approval either. You only ever pull rank when you need someone to do exactly what you say to save their lives, this being one such occasion. It's not something you enjoy. Jade leads the way inside and hurries upstairs, pausing for just a moment.
"My science team should be here,"
Jade says seriously. Her science team, who won't be needed when it comes to evacuating the base, are good people to get out first. People like Kipram and Solix, who are going to be needed to fix shit and make sure everyone can get out, end up being last. You nod, and Jade rattles off the names for you. Between the two of you, it takes only a few minutes to catch them all, and then a few minutes of hasty packing before you can herd them all outside. It ends up putting you one person up on the number of people who are supposed to fit inside the truck, but they can squeeze in back there and deal with it. With everyone in safely, you walk around the back. Aradia's already loaded the truck, and she's psionically shoving things in the back of the truck next to you to help them go faster too. "All checked off?" Aradia asks, turning to you and leaving the extra truck be.
"Yeah, I'll drive. You check them out of the base."
You nod. The pair of you jump in the truck, and you carefully pull out and slowly drive through the base, the outside of which is suddenly abuzz with activity. Aradia opens up the base list on her palm husk, the Code Yellow program now unlocked. Aradia checks each of your passengers out of the base and marks them as in transit, along with everything that she packed that she checked off as she went. As soon as you're out of the base, you pick up speed. The light is good now, and though you're not about to drive at an unsafe speed, you're aware that each extra mile per hour gets you there that much sooner, so you gauge it and drive as fast as you safely can. With a little effort, you jerk Bro to you, and as he appears, Aradia does the same for Damara. Damara starts to talk, probably asking what gives, but Aradia only has to flash the Code Yellow list for understanding to dawn on them both.
"I'll check the road ahead," Bro says, almost clinically, and darts off into the distance.
Damara says something of her own and drifts up through the cab of the truck. She's probably keeping an eye out for the balance, as much as she can without you actively balancing. As for Bro, his practical help is actually appreciated. As awful as he is, he needs you alive, and he's screwed if you jackknife this truck and die in the process. Your eyesight is obviously the best around, but an extra pair up ahead never hurts.
As you drive, Aradia keeps the science types, including Jade, calm. She also keeps on top of messages between your truck and everyone else. Obviously, you're limited on what you can say with this audience, but Aradia lets you know that Nepeta needs to see you both when you get in. You make really good time. You stop once so everyone can relieve themselves. It's a little hard to get mad when your truck is full of startled geologists who didn't get more than 5 minutes notice before they were shoved into a truck. You can't really be all, well, why didn't you go before we left, when the situation is like this? Code yellow, right? Aradia swaps out with you then, and once or twice during the rest of the drive, Bro actually does zip back to you to let you know to head more one way or the other to take a smoother and faster route. It's easy to pass those tips off to Aradia as you just seeing really far in the distance. Cool science eyes and all. There's also the matter of Solix. Dave, please tell me what's going on properly. We're shooting mining tech into space with the space elevator as fast as it can go. All I got told was the practical shit I need to do and something about code yellow, and I don't know what that means except we're going. Yeah, it's basically an emergency deal. We have to get everything ready to be able to ollie the fuck out of here the moment we get the say-so. Okay, but why? Don't know. BS, unless this is a can't say over text deal. No, really, I don't know. I can make a few educated guesses, and you probably can too, but I got told code yellow, and so that's what I'm doing. You actually don't know. Yeah, this is the sailor part you're not really getting. You gotta trust the people back on the Atuan, because someone has flagged something up as dangerous to us, so we do what we are trained to do to keep everyone here alive and get back safe. Would I like to know what's going on? Sure I would. I probably will get told when I see Nepeta, but until then, I do the job and keep people alive, and I know you're not a sailor and there's a lot here that you didn't sign up for, but when Nepeta says jump, you say how high. So, you don't know if we are in immediate danger or if this is just a precaution then? Nope, and I don't need to know right now, because I do the same thing either way. I know that's not how you usually roll, and that's why you and Hal get on so well, but you gotta trust here. I wasn't about to refuse orders from Nepeta or anything. I just don't like being left in the dark. I'm still gonna do my job. Don't worry about that. I wasn't trying to say that. Nah, man. Sorry if I implied that I didn't trust you, because I do. I know this mission has really gone sideways for you, but I promised I'd keep you safe, and I'm gonna do that. I'm not gonna let you down. As soon as I get back, I'm seeing you and Nepeta, and I'll let you know the situation when I know it. I swear. That would probably help. I'd feel a little better about all of this if I knew what was going down. I get that. It's easier to be all calm and focused when you know what's coming instead of just taking things on faith, especially when you're a civilian and not someone who's trained to follow orders whether you know why you're doing it or not. I have nothing helpful to say about people demanding that of you. You stare at your palm husk. He's pretty plainly comparing your parents' treatment of you to your role as a sailor and a balancer, implying they're all equally shitty things to do to you. Like demanding obedience and rule following in your job isn't a matter of safety so your fellow sailors get home fine, but instead some way of controlling you and your connection to the void. You don't agree. Nepeta isn't trying to exploit you, and she values the work you do. She's your friend as much as your boss. But the captain, or the role of sailors as a whole and how that relates to you balancing, well, it's just that Solix is new to this. He doesn't get how things are. Jake said things were unfair, and he felt for you when he first woke up to all of this. You're sure Jade will come to the same kind of conclusion, but it's just how it is. Even so, him insisting that this is sketchy and he doesn't like it for you is touching. There's a threatening glow of something in your chest that before you'd have said was just a warm, friendly glow of your friends showing that they care about you. You know, in a totally platonic, no homo, guys being pals kind of way. But now that you're not sprinting away from that thought, pretending not to notice it, you can't help but observe that it's familiar. It's the same kind of feeling you got with Jade saying that she was worried about you, that she missed you. It's romantic. One disaster at a time, Strider! You write something back to Solix. Something that isn't any of that. Dave?
Sorry, just got struck in the feelings about the very sweet consideration you've got for me there.
Sure. Look, I've gotta go. I've gotta go psionically throw things into containers and shoot them into space.
Look at it this way. Even if this job is nuts, you're definitely having a more interesting day than Hal, right?
True. To think, right now I could be telling people how to change their documents from one file format to another.
Code Yellow doesn't sound so bad now, huh? You cracked the code.
Sorry, Dave, I have to go and be helpful now. Can't stay around to chat all day. Gotta tidy everything away with my magic brain powers.
Bye, Jake.
On a scale of 1 to annoyed, how do you feel about me throwing Jake across the room for stealing my palm husk?
Not annoyed at all, but I rate it 2 out of 5 thigh slaps of amusement.
Anyway, I evidently have to go.
Later. Jake's causing trouble,
you announce to the truck at large and turn your palm husk to show Jade the last little bit of that conversation. I'm unsurprised. If he's not in trouble, he's sprinting away from it, pretending like it's not him that caused it. Jade snorts.
Burn?
You say, somewhat absently, as you check your palm husk. You've got about an hour and a half until you get back now. Maybe a little less if Aradia keeps her foot that heavy on the accelerator. Aradia's got that nice bonus of being able to simply lift the entire truck with her mind if something were to go wrong. Sure, she could do it with you driving as well, but her reflexes are faster if she's the one at the wheel. You mentally weigh up the costs and benefits and finally decide to get a quick nap in and let Aradia drive. Jade is the one that wakes you, her hand gently squeezing your thigh and moving your leg enough to wake you without startling you. Jade always was good at not making you jump.
I'm awake,
you murmur, and rub your face with your hands. The base is in view now, as is the shuttle in the far distance. Aradia radios in that you're pulling in and gets told where to park so people outside can start unloading the truck and sorting things out to either go in the shuttle with the rest of you or in a shipping container for the space elevator. You chance a quick look over the Code Yellow checklist and see that damn near everyone is either at this base or on the way. You've got one last truck full of people still at the other base, and you'd bet they'll be heading out in no time at all. People have done pre-flight shuttle checks. A good number of people have their personal stuff already stowed. Lots of the launch prep is already done. Yeah, you're making good time. As you park, everyone inside gets moving and goes where they need to. There's a reason you all have drills for this. You and Aradia head inside, and you barely get 10 paces in before Camille stops you, a stack of sealed crates in her arms.
Nepeta said when you get here, grab Solix and head up to her office. She's coordinating from there,
Camille tells you. You nod, and then, on your way to find Solix, you and Aradia get stopped by a few other people relaying the same message. Nepeta must have wanted to be sure that someone saw you and passed it on. Gratifyingly, Solix is at his desk when you get there, typing away at lightning speed and glancing from screen to screen.
Solix,
Aradia says after a few seconds. Solix makes a noise of vague acknowledgement. He sounds kind of stressed, too. The pair of you wait as he shoots off a few messages and then slowly turns to face you, or his body does. His head is still facing the screen for the most part until finally he tears himself away to look at you. Telemetry signals and moves are... Hi, glad you're back. What the hell? Solix asks wearily. Matina chimes in with clear concern, but you can't get what he says. Now that you're looking, you're pretty sure that the floor around Solix's desk is darker than it should be. I think we're about to go find out what the hell. Come on, Nepeta wants us all there, Aradia tells him. Solix nods, grabs a mug of coffee on his desk, and downs it in one. He gets to his feet, drops the empty mug on the desk, and waits for you two to lead the way. Aradia goes first, with you after, and Solix and his ghosts following behind. Damara flickers into place next to Aradia, and you pull Bro over as well. Instantly, you hear Psionic's pissed-off hiss, and you have to all but dance around Solix to get to Psionic. It's not the most delicate message that you get through to Psionic as you push your shoulder into him, but you try to make it clear. Shit's going wrong, you know Bro sucks, and Psionic has every right to hate him, but you really need Bro now. He can't just run 50 bajillion volts through the ghost of your biological father on principle right now. It's a practical matter. Psionic's ghostly clawed fingers, more like talons right now, wrap around your shoulder. Psionic leans towards Bro with a loathing practically dripping off of him. Bro looks back at him with the kind of cold amusement that he used to regard test subjects with. Like, yeah, so what if Psionic has power? Bro knows the rules and he's got the upper hand. It makes your stomach churn, and as Psionic looks down at you, it occurs to you that Psionic might have felt your reaction to Bro, even if you hadn't meant to communicate it. To your surprise, Psionic wraps around your neck and shoulders in a way you've only seen him do to Solix. You can't understand Matuna, but you know enough to manage to interpret "Aw" from his tone and expression. Alright, that's not what I thought was going to happen, but sure, let's go, Aradia says after a moment and starts walking again. It was sheer luck that the three of you were out of earshot of people just then, but you're not now, so no one's able to comment on your new fashionably undead scarf in case you're overheard. Psionic radiates a kind of petty malice, but he's at least got the sense to just think violent things and not act on them at this moment. And in what is either a moment of mercy from the universe or Bro having some common fucking sense, Bro keeps his mouth shut and doesn't goad Psionic further. You need him to balance, and Bro needs you alive. It sucks that this is your one point of shared self-interest, so it's literally the only thing you can keep going on about, but it is what it is. Nepeta's on a call when the three of you, plus assorted ghosts, step into her office. It's not like she's got a desk job or anything, but sometimes she needs a private space to work on more confidential information. Nepeta is so much not a desk leader that sailors often remark that you know things are getting serious when Nepeta's in her office. It's not that funny right now. She seems relieved to see you, but puts a finger up to pause you for a moment as whoever she's talking to finishes what they were saying.
Yes, agreed. Keep going and keep me updated. The connection with telemetry has been fixed now. Keep the shuttle updated as time goes on and let me know if there's any change,
Nepeta says, flashing a smile at Solix as she mentions things being fixed. Nepeta hangs up and sighs, properly looking at the three of you.
How's the other base?
Nepeta asks, and behind you the door clicks shut. Either Solix or Aradia decided to close it, and it's a good thing, too. We didn't get the time to balance, but it felt weird just being there, like pressure, Aradia answers for you. We could try here. If there's a chance we're going to have to go soon, then we need to find out before we do if Solix can affect the balance or not, you add.
I think that's a good idea. Let me know when you're doing it so I can try to keep people away.
Nepeta nods. So, what's going on? Solix asks finally.
Gamzee's been reporting that the light balance on the ship is getting worse. People are seeing things. Unreality is stronger, and he says he can feel people waking up.
Nepeta starts. Okay, but what changed? That was about where we were before. What upped us to yellow? You ask, and Nepeta frowns.
Honestly, I don't know. The decision didn't come from me and Polypa. This is orders from the Atuan. They're just telling us they need us back as soon as physically possible. That's all they've said. Meaning they need the three of us back, or the two of us, as we still haven't confirmed Solix's status just yet, Aradia says grimly.
Solix frowns. He's really not good at accepting what is effectively because I said so as a reason for doing something. But why? Are people throwing themselves out of the ship up there or something? What are we walking into here? He asks.
Let's maybe not joke about that,
Nepeta says with a wince. I'm not joking. If it's serious enough to cut this mission short, then it's gotta be big, right? They must have told you something, Solix insists.
They told me to get everyone back as soon as possible. They told me to liaise with telemetry to do that. I wasn't told why, even when I asked. We can't stay here indefinitely, and if something's going on that means we have to go, then I need to get people out of here. I'd like to know what's going on, but all I can do right now is get everyone home safe,
Nepeta says unhappily. Damara says something. Apparently it's astute and thoughtful instead of just remarking on the shitty situation. Too bad you don't know what she's saying. Nepeta has known you all long enough that she can tell when someone's ghost is talking just based on how you and Aradia react, so she also waits for someone to translate.
Damara suggested that we balance twice.
Once now to make sure that Solix can do it and iron out any problems, and then at launch. Well, and beyond that, I guess, depending on how much space travel we're doing in just the shuttle. Aradia explains. Brode nods in agreement, but evidently doesn't have anything else to add, and although Matuna and Solix both seem uneasy, they're not actually disagreeing with that plan. The only problem I can see is it could take Solix out of action and make it harder to do his tech work between now and the launch, Aradia says.
But Coopram's going to be on the way soon, and other people can do the basics. We can't teach anyone else to balance with us. You counter.
Agreed. If that's settled, I'd like the three of you to get a little way clear of the base so you can do what you need to undisturbed. The last thing we need is more people waking up in the middle of all of this.
Nepeta sighs.
About that, you say, and Nepeta looks at you, pleading silently for you to not give her more problems. Those people with the headsets were hearing the void. Jade was one of them, and she wanted to go out there looking for it, so I had to tell her. We should catch the rest of them before the launch, too, so we're not drawing more attention to the shuttle than we have to.
Great. Okay. Go balance, and I'll call those people in and get them caught up. Let me know as soon as you've discovered what Solix can do and what you think you can manage when we're in flight.
Nepeta orders. Yes, sir, you and Aradia say as one, making Solix flounder and scramble for the right words. He ends up going with something like, yes, sir, which actually makes Nepeta laugh. Something of a relief, no doubt, given the pressure on her right now. She shoos you out of her office, and Aradia leads the way down the corridor.
We can walk a little way from the base. Let me just grab my guitar,
you say, pointing in the direction of yours and Solix's room. But what are we doing? I never picked. Solix calls after you, his tone full of worry.
We might have to pick for you. Dave?
Aradia looks at you at that last bit. A song with meaning to him that he'd found by himself and clicked with would have been better. Go for Easy instead.
Here's a health to the company, you say, after a second or two of thought.
That works.
Aradia nods. But Solix is already being pulled down the stairs by Aradia, so you guess she's dealing with that particular protest. You hurry to your room and spare a moment to despair that you're going to have to pack when you get back and haul it into the shuttle, then toss the rest of the stuff that's being shot out to the Atuan in the hopes of it being caught and salvaged. At least, that's the plan. You're hoping that whatever is going on up there isn't going to stop the Atuan from catching it, because otherwise you're just bombarding your ship with high-speed shipping container projectiles. At least telemetry and that sort of stuff isn't your responsibility, and belongs firmly in your favorite category of someone else's problem. You snag your guitar and hurry out of the base, doing your best to look busy and like you should be doing what you're doing. It's perfectly normal that you'd be putting one of your personal effects on the shuttle, so it's entirely reasonable that you'd be leaving the base with it. No one else needs to know that you're gonna go play guitar in the woods. As it happens, everyone else is too busy to really pay much attention to what you're doing, so you make it out of the back of the base just fine, and you can spot Aradia and Solix a little way off without any trouble. Solix has earphones in as he listens with a look of deep focus on his face. You guess he's having a listen to the song to try to study it. You'd all but forgotten that Psionic was still on your shoulders until he bounds from yours to Solix's as you get close.
Let's go,
you say.
I've got an idea for a place,
Aradia says, and so you and Solix follow her lead. Solix shoots you a worried look and pulls the earphone in the ear closest to you out. What am I supposed to do? You've still not really told me anything, he says, which is fair. You thought you'd have more time for this, to be fair to you.
Okay, you've got the music for this song down, right?
You ask, and Solix shows you his Palmhusk screen with the basic guitar chords and lyrics on display. Truthfully, that's mostly the sheet music for vocal accompaniment, so the singer knows roughly what the instruments are going to be doing. Actually, if you were to write down what you're going to play, it'd be more complex than that, but then he did get this from Aradia, who's mostly just a singer, so that makes sense.
The reason I picked this song is it's got a pretty clear structure. 3 verses, 3 choruses. Or 4, I guess, given that the last one is basically a repeat. I can start, we all do the chorus. Aradia takes the second verse. We all do the chorus, and by that point, you should have picked up the feel of it enough to do the last verse on your own. Then chorus and done. You explain.
Terrifying. How does it actually work on a balance kind of way, though? He asks.
Whenever someone contributes to the song, they're affecting the balance, so Dave playing the guitar alone will do it. When we start the song, Dave and I are going to find a level. You'll feel that when it happens. It really is like the ground shifting under you. What should happen is that you feel that change and we see what works with Matuna and Psionic. Either you can use both at once or you'd have to pick. Or neither. That's also an option, I guess.
Aradia explains.
That's still sounding a lot like figure it out as you go, eh?
Solix points out. Aradia turns around and walks backwards for a moment to give him a shrug that's basically like, life sucks, what can you do? Which is fair, but likely not what Solix wants to hear right now.
Oh, just up here,
Aradia says and hurries on through the snow. There's a little clearing that'll work just fine, the middle of it broken with a fallen tree and a large rock. You head to the big rock and park yourself there. You'll pull your outer gloves off and leave your undersuit gloves on. It's not going to produce the cleanest sound, but it will stop your fingers from going stupidly numb, which means it's a trade-off that you'll take. You start to tune your guitar, which, of course, had gone way out since you took it outside in the cold. As you do that, Aradia gets her and Solix sat on the fallen tree, and she quietly explains how fast you'll be going through the song, and she and Damara answer a few questions for Matuna. As for Bro, he and Psionic are standing on opposite sides of the clearing, glaring at each other. Well, you say standing. Psionic is more of a semi-person-shaped cloud again, and has neglected to include legs. You think you're close enough to being in tune now. You strum and listen closely, and figure that's about as good as you're going to get out here. Most likely you're the only one who can tell. Ready? You ask.
Yep,
Aradia says brightly. No, but go ahead, I guess, Solix says, and Matuna says something that's probably meant to be reassuring.
You start to play, the melody of your guitar resonating through the snowy woodland around you. Opposite you, Solix's back straightens and a somewhat startled look flits over his face. As you play, you can feel where Bro is exactly, like he's more real than he normally is. With a breath of cold air fresh in your lungs, you start to sing, making sure to be slow.
Kind friends and companions, come join me in rhyme. Come lift up your voices in chorus with mine. Come lift up your voices, all grief to refrain. For we may or might never all meet here again.
The chorus starts and Aradia is first to leap in, Solix following her almost whisper quiet with his eyes glued firmly on his palm husk and the written words there. As soon as Aradia joins, though, you can feel Damara glow brighter and you wince at how bright everything around you feels. You're definitely pitching too light, you can tell that already.
Can be merry, all grief to refrain. For we may or might never all meet here again. Here's a health to the dear lass that I love so well. For her style.
It's Aradia's turn now, and as she sings, you can feel her pushing the light away, leaving you to pull darkness into the gaps. Like a dance that she's leading, you following every step that she's vacated. You can feel Solix there, but he's not yet doing anything. Damara says something to Matuna, and after a moment you start to feel his influence, weak, but there, as Matuna starts to help push the light back.
Here's a health to the company.
Matuna leans to Damara's side, and Psionic shifts to loom over Solix. You're back to the chorus again, and as Solix sings with you two once more, a little more sure of how it's meant to sound, you can feel that he's definitely doing something. Matuna seems to be following Damara's lead of pushing the light down, but Psionic is leaning on that scale in your favor, letting the darkness of the past seep in.
For we may or might never all meet here again.
There's a pause before Solix is supposed to sing, but that's fine. You can loop the riff without being prompted to. What's made him falter isn't nerves, but psionic physically leaning on him, and as Solix starts to sing, the balance around you pitches far enough into the dark that things feel even again. Or at least close enough to even that Damara can start finessing it to be perfect. Psionic doesn't have much fine control yet, but he's got the power.
Safe landing without any shock. If ever I should meet you by land or by sea, I will always remember your kindness to me.
The meaning of the words that Solix is singing isn't lost on you. A hope for your future journey. You and Aradia join Solix in the chorus. Balancing with more than 2 people can be a little tricky, as it's hard to work out who's doing what. That's why pairs are the go-to, but it's still doable. The fact that Solix is balanced between Matuna and Psionic naturally certainly helps.
Here's a health to the company and one to my lass. Let us drink and be merry, all out of one glass. Let us drink and be merry, all grief to refrain. For we may or might never all meet here again.
As your voices end, you feel something shift. From Aradia's face, you know she can feel it too. Solix doesn't seem to react as far as you can tell, but he's newer at this. Hurriedly, you keep the melody of the song going on your guitar as you try to place the feeling. It doesn't feel like it's coming from Solix, and Matuna and Damara aren't doing anything right now, but you definitely feel the balance shifting already. Bro darts to your side, and his hand swipes through your arm, making you look over at him. He's not looking at you, though. He's looking directly upwards. You follow his gaze, and it takes you a second to see it. Above you, the sky is cut into by the towering peaks of alien trees, but the clearing that you're in affords you a good look at the sky. With your eyes, you see the pale overcast of clouds not harboring any specific meteorological significance. The planet is just pretty cloudy. You can see, thanks to the incredible focus of your eyes, the way the clouds are gently shifting with the wind in the upper atmosphere. You don't need your eyes to see. That was the whole reason your mother was so fascinated with you at the beginning. With a thought, you disconnect your visual feed from your eyes to your brain, and for a moment you still see whiteness, which is fine. Sometimes your brain interprets a lack of data as vague colors instead of darkness, but no, this isn't that. You don't see it right away because it's simply too vast. Above you, the sky is a bottomless pit of white, a gaping wound in the fabric of reality, the shine on an eyeball the size of a star. The void is hurtling towards you so much faster than it should ever do, and it means to swallow you whole. It wants you, it wants your future, the days you'll miss if you die, your thoughts, your dreams, your whole being. It is vast, terrible, and hungry. Aradia draws a shaking breath in, and you flick your vision back on. The two of you look at each other, but Solix is squinting up at the sky as the last notes from your guitar fade away. It feels like things are slipping upwards. Up there? Solix says, uncertainly. Don't look at it. Don't think just yet. Fear isn't good. Aradia says hurriedly, catching Solix by the horns and jerking his head downwards again. You stand, shove your guitar in its case, and zip it as fast as you can. You pull out your palm husk and look at the code yellow screen. The furthest trucks are 2.5 hours out. They've got to go faster. Code red.
Confirm code red.
Confirm. No time for typing quirks, conversation, nothing. We're leaving, now, you say to the others. Wait, why? Solix is cut off as his palmhest display in his sleeve suddenly flares red. The fuck? Move! Aradia shouts, and the three of you take off running to the base.
Go inside, grab your tablet and repair kit, and go straight to the shuttle. Wait outside.
You tell Solix firmly. Code Red is leaving immediately, right? Why? What's going on? Solix gasps as he runs along with you. You'd never thought he'd need to run for this, but this kind of thing is exactly why you made sure he could. The void is far too close. We need to leave. Hiding from it isn't going to work anymore. We need to get away from it, back to the ship. The thing Matuna and Damara were doing, pushing the light away, we're going to need to do that, and Psionic is going to have to go really dark, Aradia says breathily as she runs. But not everyone's here yet, Solix gasps.
Most are. We still have to get everyone here in the shuttle first and everything primed. They still have time.
You tell him. We're not leaving anyone behind, right? Solix asks, going from running to flying. Leaving people behind is never the plan, Aradia tells him. That's not a no, Solix whispers in horror.
Tablet, repair kit, meet at the shuttle. You order Solix, rushing to the base door.
You fling it open and sprint inside. You bound up staircases until you get to yours and Solix's room. You grab your violin from its case at the foot of your bed. You already have your bag on your back now, still packed from your trip to the other base with Aradia. You know full well to keep important shit in your bag in case you don't get the chance to grab it again before you leave. Your tablet is already in your bag. You don't care about clothes or anything else here enough to take it. The violin is more practical than it is sentimental, though it is that too. For just a second you hesitate. Solix doesn't know that rule. You know that he brought Matuna's ring with him, but there's still stuff on his bedside table. Without time to think, you scrape it all into your bag and book it out of the room. The base is awash with adrenaline as people rush to get things they've been tasked with in the event of a code red. They have their jobs, and you have yours. You sprint to the shuttle and find Solix outside, his bag at his feet and a nervous expression on his face.
The flight crew are going to be talking to telemetry. You're going to help if they need it. Take your toolkit out. I'll put your stuff in your locker.
You tell Solix, who hurriedly does as you tell him. You get into the shuttle, stow your violin, your guitar, and yours and Solix's bags. With that done, you hurry back out, even as other people are getting strapped into their seats, ready to go. When you get back down there, Nepeta and Aradia are there with Solix. Nepeta nods as she sees you, and you hurry to her side.
The trucks are going as fast as possible. They've ditched their loads and hitched together. Kubram is there ready to correct the trucks in case they slip or anything, so that's letting them go faster. Current ETA for them is an hour out, maybe a little less, Nepeta says.
We can do an hour, Aradia nods. What about the satellite? Solix asks worriedly.
The station has been given a course by Viatuan. They're already burning all of their fuel to come to an intersect course with us on the way to the ship. It'll be a little close catching them on the way, but we can do it.
Nepeta nods.
Having one shuttle's gonna make this easier at least,
Bro observes.
Yeah, it's easier being close to Aradia and Solix, but it's still one shuttle. It's a single point of failure.
You tell him.
Not really, Bro says with a shrug.
Matuna says something, and Solix catches your eye. A second passes before he looks at Matuna. He said one shuttle is easier and said it's not really a single point of failure, which it is. Solix translates for Matuna, and you suppose Damara and Aradia too. And Nepeta, who is still here for this conversation that's apparently happening.
If you die because the shuttle you're in explodes, then there being another shuttle with people in it that don't die doesn't do anything for you. You don't benefit from other people not dying if you are dead, Bro says, directly to Solix in the judgmental tone of voice he'd use to explain something to you to make you feel incredibly stupid as a kid. It's a single point of failure for the continuation of our species and our ship not losing all of us at once. Other people care about things other than themselves, you say back, in the same tone. It's mostly trolls, so...
Bro shrugs with one shoulder, the very picture of apathy. Solix doesn't look impressed, but you're relieved that he can clearly tell when Bro is trying to get under his skin and isn't rising to it.
Wait, what did you say?
You ask Bro. Bro looks at you flatly, without saying anything.
No, I'm not trying to make you repeat yourself so you reconsider whatever you said. I'm not dumb enough to think you'd do that. I actually didn't catch that. You tell him.
It's bullshit. Your hearing is fantastic, and tucked around the side of the shuttle where you are now, it's not like there's an awful lot of things that could have interfered with you hearing Bro. So, it'd make more sense that you were trying to make Bro say that again, and really hear how fucked up it was to imply that a bunch of people dying doesn't matter if it's mostly trolls, because that's no big loss. You're not doing that because shame isn't a thing he's ever felt, and Bro would, and did, literally die before reconsidering anything he did or said. You know that, and Bro knows you know that. Bro cuts himself off as his volume cuts in half and his words become indecipherable. Wild. Still not getting it. Well, it's only you, so... You shrug. I can't understand him when you do that either, Solix says, almost edging into excitement at the idea. Good to know, Aradia says, with a kind of cheerful malice that you've always really liked about her. Anyway, Solix says, after a moment's pause and no consideration to smooth conversational transitions. To be clear, we're waiting for the rest of the people to get back and then leaving, but the three of us specifically are what?
I would say Dave and Aradia can give the balance a quick check when we're getting close to time, and then it's a matter of keeping the shuttle even. We'll be in space a lot longer this time. Telemetry is playing with the idea of seeing if we can change some supplies for batteries and get a few of our psionics to manually charge them beforehand to get some more thrust. But that's for me to worry about, Nepeta tells him. And we can't have psionics actively powered in flight anyway, so if they don't get back to us in time, then it's moot, Aradia adds. Well, okay. Balancing is obviously kind of hard, and it's literally my first day doing it, but if everything else is basically ready and we're just waiting, then it seems like it should all be Solix's mouth is covered at once by 3 pairs of hands. Don't say things like that,
Nepeta hisses at him.
No speculation. No commenting on how difficult you think it will or won't be. You'll jinx us,
you add urgently as Solix stares at you all.
We mean it. Don't say it thinking you're being funny,
Aradia warns him. You carefully withdraw your hands, then Nepeta does, and lastly, with a warning look, Aradia takes hers back too. Solix stands up properly. He bent backwards a little with you all jumping at him like that. Sailors and superstition, forgot about that, he says.
Don't say it's just... Have you never watched a horror movie?
I'm going inside before this gets worse. Nepeta huffs and stomps off to the ladder in the shuttle. Comments about how much that was or wasn't warranted based on how much I believe that this is or isn't a dumb thing to do are going to count as jinxing this worse, right? Solix asks slowly.
My sweet honeybee,
Aradia croons sweetly as she steps closer to him. I have duct tape in my bag. Don't test me.
Shutting up now, Solix says in a strangled tone. I'm gonna go get into my spacesuit,
you announce, and take that opportunity to leave. There's not a lot of free space in the shuttle, especially not after you had to gut a lot of it to get all that extra seating in, but what little free space remains is taken up by a lot of people doing what you are right now. Some bright spark has set all of your suits out at your designated seats. The people who are already changed are strapped in, so they're out of the way. You take care to inspect your suit before you put it on and check it as you go. You're just checking the armhole seams when you're interrupted.
Dave, what's going on?
Jade asks in a whisper.
I really don't know much more than you
tell her. Jade doesn't look like she believes you, which, given what you've revealed to her lately, is probably not surprising. You've kept all of this balance stuff from her for your entire relationship. It's fair that she'd be skeptical about you telling her anything else.
Everyone's pretty unsettled,
she adds.
I'm going to do everything I can. I just keep it together, I guess,
you say with a helpless shrug.
Is this stuff dangerous for you?
Jade asks you seriously. You stare back at her, your arm half in your spacesuit's sleeve. Your knee-jerk instinct is to say, no, nothing's wrong, you're fine, nothing's going to happen. But it is dangerous, and you have to do it anyway. You're just not used to her knowing that.
Dave, you know we're still a team, right? I'll always have your back. If there's anything I can do to help.
Jade says softly. You wish it didn't hurt your heart so much to hear it. I've just got to do my job, you say quietly. Jade's eyes are sharp and menacing, like a smashed bottle brandished in a fight. She's not angry at you can tell that much, but she looks like she means to take reality out back and shiv it between the ribs for making this situation exist. She breathes in a little shakily. You see her jaw tense from her gritting her teeth, but then she breathes out and nods.
Just let me know. I've got your back,
Jade says and walks off back to her seat. You stare dumbly after her until you shake yourself out of it and figure out exactly where you were in the process of putting your suit on. You get through the rest of it and hurry back outside. As soon as she sees you, Aradia goes up in your place. Solix is sat on the floor cross-legged, looking at his tablet and completely ignoring the unblinking stare of Bro that's directed at him. Mituna is trying to get Bro's attention, but Bro's not biting. They're making really good time in the truck. Also, the space station thing went off without a hitch, Solix says, glancing up at you. That's good, you say in relief. It also looks like we're not doing the psionically powered battery thing. Something about the speed of intercepting with the space station? Solix adds, his eyes on his screen again. Velocity in space is kind of a weird concept. The planet you're standing on is spinning at an insane rate and orbiting in its solar system and being pushed out from the Big Bang. Literally everything is moving. The Autuan mostly travels at frankly bonkers speed, but you don't feel it because you're on it. When you're in a shuttle and you're out of the atmosphere, you don't really feel the speed you're going at, but trying to intercept with the space station without matching its speed will mean you just plow through it like a train hitting a cardboard box. Not a good idea. That's kind of a relief. I know we have converters for big emergency situations, but it always feels like a real slippery slope, you say with a shudder. Psionic crackles angrily, floating through the air back and forth, almost like he's pacing. Yeah, we're not fans of it either, Solix snorts. Mituna looks pretty pissy at that, and given how he spent the last few years of his life, that's more than fair. Solix rests his tablet on his legs and turns his attention to you properly. You know he's not looking at Bro, because Bro is skulking around the entrance to the shuttle a little ways off, being pissed that you're ignoring him and stopping him from fucking with anyone else, too. No doubt he'll make you pay for it later in your dreams, but for now he can deal. Besides, he might get to attack the void manifesting physically in the shuttle, and he's always been upsettingly keen about causing pain. That ought to make him a little happier, at least. What's actually going to happen? Solix asks you. I don't know. I'm not psychic, you tell him. You're not psychic, though, he counters. That's... Okay, your point is hoofby shit, but fair. You concede with a groan. Something flickers across Solix's face for a moment, a triumphant little bit of elation at managing to defeat your argument. He came up with a response that was quick and witty, and you had to admit that. He obviously liked that. Normally you wouldn't notice that kind of thing, or if you did, it'd be a subconscious awareness that one of your friends was giving you shit in the same kind of vaguely antagonistic, friendly banter that you do with all your friends. That's not something worth noticing. It's not unusual. Your musical memory and your siblings' fixated interest on charting Earth music flares up. Tom Jones, It's Not Unusual, charted somewhere in the 1960s? Nah, the numbers aren't your thing. That one little lyrical refrain in it of, it's not unusual to be loved by anyone, jukeboxes its way through your mind. Solix isn't doing anything that's unusual for him or any of your friends, but you noticing it, and you noticing that he likes it, is unusual. You don't think you're being weird about this either. Solix mentioned that his feelings were pitch, and playful antagonism is textbook pitch. You realize you've been standing there in silence when Solix narrows his eyes at you behind his tinted glasses. If you're trying to answer my question telepathically, it's not working,
Solix says slowly. Jeez, keep up. Not even telepathic yet. So disappointing. You sigh, and Solix rolls his eyes at you. He is grinning, though. Oh, yeah. This is definitely more than just friendship. You have actual feelings on your hands here, and you have no idea what to do about that. What you should do is ignore it until you're back on the ship and you can finally be off duty. Then you can figure your shit out. You're pretty sure you need Rose for this one. What was it Solix said? One crisis at a time. Imminent doom now, unfairly attractive friends later. Generally, how it goes is, when we're up there, we can sing and do our thing. People join in. It works for keeping people calm and focused on something. Normally, that's all there is, and it's only when we start getting real interference from the void that the people who don't know about this kind of glaze over or wake up. At that point, them seeing us balance at a really hardcore level isn't really the issue. You explain, instead of thinking about Solix's attractiveness. Or, you note, as Solix bites at his lip thoughtfully, what it was like kissing him. Definitely don't think about that. So, our trip here and you doing that stuff was hardcore level? He asks slowly. Yeah, sorry about that. Really in at the deep end here. You apologize. There's no point complaining about it. All I want to do is make sure I'm actually helpful, but I'm going to admit I stopped studying the songs religiously after I decided they weren't some code. And even when I was going over them, I wasn't trying to learn them as music. Solix sighs. You're trying. That's a lot. No one's got a right to expect you to be perfect, and you got it back there, so you're already doing well. You tell him. You hear a crunch of icy ground behind you and glance back to see Aradia walking over in her spacesuit. I know that, Solix says unhappily. Seriously, man, don't worry about it. There's loads of things you don't know when you start. We're not expecting perfection. You're handling this great already, you add, since that didn't seem to help. I guess, Solix mutters. Solix expects to be perfect at everything the first time, Aradia says cheerfully. Hey! Solix protests, floating to his feet. If the space boot fits! Aradia laughs. Are her accusations hurtful and accurate? You ask with a smile. Solix probably wouldn't describe what he's doing now as pouting, but you'll call it that. To make it worse, Matuna is standing just behind him, nodding vigorously. Solix catches him doing it and swipes a hand through Matuna, to no avail. Go sulk inside and get changed when you're in there, Aradia suggests cheerfully. Solix flips you both off and walks towards the entrance of the shuttle. Matuna gives you both a curious look, but elects to follow Solix into the shuttle. Psionic stays behind and crackles angrily for a moment. You look around and figure that Bro must have made some move like he intended to follow Solix as well. Evidently, Psionic isn't going to let that happen, and Bro plays it off like he didn't even care anyway. Once Solix is out of sight, Aradia speaks again. Are you feeling that pressure again? She asks, her voice lowered as a few more people hurry past you both to get to the shuttle. It's a little hard to tell it apart from worrying about what the hell is going on, you admit. Not knowing what we're going back to is unsettling, that's for sure. Aradia nods. If Gimsey was dead, they'd have said that. You say, but you're not totally sure about that. I think they would have. It'd be weird to explain if they didn't, given that they already told us about Father. She agrees. There's a moment of silence between the two of you as you think about Father. It doesn't feel real in a way, you say softly. Yeah, it feels like he should still be there when we go back. It's not really sunk in yet, I think. Aradia nods. She was closer to Father than you were. Gamzee and Aradia both were. Not that you had anything against the guy. You liked him, had no issues working with him. You just clicked with Aradia way more, and for personal reasons you understand Gamzee better. You'll bet anything Gamzee blames himself for what happened to Father, even if there wasn't anything he could have done. It's not like feeling guilty about a death he wasn't responsible for is new for Gamzee. If anything, that's probably brought up a lot of shit for him.
You figure that no one is having a good time right now. I can't think about what we're going to deal with when we get back. There's a million things we don't know. Just gotta work the problem in front of us. As much as I hate to agree with Bro, it will be easier in one shuttle. It's way easier to balance when you're right next to me instead of way over there on another shuttle. You sigh.
Right. And we have Solix now. I'm sure he'll be fine, even if he's worried about not being good enough.
Aradia agrees. The pair of you lapse into silence, looking at the horizon beyond the base, although the trucks coming your way are still out of your sight, even with your eyes. Now that you're looking for it, you can feel a hint of that same pressure you felt at the other base, even if it's not as strong. Nepeta telling the rest of those headset people what was going on must have cut off the Void's sneaky little access to you and slowed its advance. The waiting is the worst part. After about 5 minutes, Solix floats down from inside the shuttle and hurries over to you both. He hands something to Aradia. Rusty says we should take these now, Solix says. Must be the psionic inhibitors. Solix swallows his dry. You don't need water or anything? You could have gone back in and got something to drink, you say in surprise.
I'm practiced enough at swallowing medication. I'm fine.
Solix shrugs. Well, okay then. You look over at Aradia and see her moving her mouth and her cheeks in a way that makes you hope she's not doing what you think she's doing. Your hopes are dashed when she tosses the pill in her mouth and swallows it very audibly.
I don't need water. I make my own,
Aradia announces gleefully. I could have lived without you hearing you swish your spit around your mouth. Gross. Solix, back me up on this. That was gross. You plead, looking at him. I am a diplomatically neutral zone. I can't side with either of you here without losing somehow, and the only winning move is not to play. Pass, Solix says wearily. You'd ask what Aradia would do if he sided with you. Lick him? Except, yes, that's exactly something Aradia would do, and she'd probably do it to you too. You'll only tolerate contact with one friend's tongue, thanks, and Terezi already has that spot. Although, Solix is your friend, and, okay, 2, but no more! Nepeta calls the 3 of you inside after that, saving you from the prospect of thinking about kissing Solix again. She wants a quiet update about the situation so far, and after that she has actual tech stuff she needs Solix to look over. Aradia goes about talking to people and trying to ease the very tense atmosphere inside the shuttle. As for you, there's always something you can help out with. That's your job. The rest of your crew arrives ahead of schedule, and everyone piles into the shuttle, and you're filled with relief that you're not going to have to leave anyone behind. You get into your seat and realize that someone has put Aradia on Solix's other side, changing the shuttle layout to how you had it before. You figured Nepeta thought Solix might need Aradia's guidance. It's a smart idea. Nepeta and Polypa run through the pre-launch checks, making sure everyone is present and that everything is running as it should. Everything that can be stowed away has been. You put your instruments away overhead and checked that they were all still there before you buckled in. The launch goes a little differently on this side, you say quietly to Solix, who looks at you with rapt and slightly nervous attention. We're far enough away from the Atuan that having them running everything would cause more of a delay than we have time for, so we only check with them for a few things. The rest of the checks we do ourselves, and we're not verifying it with the ship. You explain. That makes sense, Solix says, his voice low so he doesn't disrupt any of the aforementioned checks. You see Solix tense and look around to find Bro floating near your seat, alert and on edge. Psionic, who had been lurking under Solix's chair, rises up and bristles at Bro being so close. Solix reaches for him without trying to look obviously like he's doing that, since there's a load of people here who are going to think he's a little weird if they see him talking to no one or petting the air. He manages to get Psionic to back down a little, or it could be that Damara and Matuna joining you made him relax a bit. Damara stands at the foot of Aradia's chair, her legs partly phasing through Aradia. Matuna floats above Solix, which leaves everyone accounted for. Not that you could leave them behind even if you wanted to, but it's still better to have them close by. Dave, Aradia hisses at you. She can't lean over Solix because you're all strapped in, but she's doing as close as she can to it. Yeah? You say back quietly.
Shantyman,
Aradia whispers. It takes you a second to realize that she means the song, and not you. See, that's the thing. Not everyone calls you people balancers. It's the more accepted term these days, but before balancing was more widely understood, crews kept balancers around because their instincts felt it was safer. There have always been people who can do what you can do, even if it was to a lesser degree back then. And on ships, real ocean-going ships, you have people who sung shanties and played music. You could argue that those people offered entertainment, which helped keep the crew happy, but you know why it was, really. The song Aradia is referencing was written pre-destruction, but knowingly or not, it was talking about balancers and the danger of not having them. A song about balance and about the past. You're going to need to pull darker to keep the shuttle safe, so going with a past-facing song is a really good idea. Yeah, you agree with a nod. You can see Solix giving Aradia a worried look as he tries to find the song lyrics, and Aradia softly explains that it's a call-and-response type song. You'll lead and everyone else will follow. He'll blend in just fine. You shoot a few messages out to other people in the shuttle to get them to agree to join in with you. That way, people follow organically, and they'll help, even if they don't know what they're doing. Aradia is explaining things to Solix ever so quietly. Nepeta and Polypa are finalizing the last few checks, and the countdown to launch starts. For your part, you focus and center yourself. You reach out through Bro as much as you can, and feel that, at least for the moment, you're okay. The engines kick in, and the thrust of the shuttle pushes you back into your seat. The shuttle climbs higher and higher, and you wait, your senses open. As gravity starts to abate, you can feel that pressurized static feeling start to creep in.
You do your job. You start to sing. And because you've done your job, other people join in immediately to go along with you in your song about balancers past.
Well, modern ships carry mighty funny gear.
And away, get away, you shanty man.
As Solix and Aradia join you in the responses, you can feel the shift. Your ghosts become sharper, clearer, more real. Bro is edged in a glowing haze of darkness as he pulls the fabric of your past into your shuttle. Damara and Mutuna are cutting through the light ahead of your shuttle like a snowplow. You're way past the point of hiding, you're just getting away. As the chorus starts and the voices of the whole shuttle fill the air at once, you can feel the balance resonating. Across the room, you can see Jade watching you. She's still participating, but for the first time, you think she's actually seeing what you do.
And they got no use for a shanty man.
Floating computer dressed up like a ship.
And away, get away, you shanty man.
Skippered and crewed by my crew.
The chorus starts again, and psionics form ripples and shudders unnervingly, which is pretty unsettling given that you can feel that Bro is doing all the heavy lifting here. For whatever reason, psionic isn't helping right now, and he looks strange. You feel it, the shift in reality around you. The light, bright and terrible, reaching for your shuttle. It's not grabbing for you like last time. Instead, your mind is filled with 1,000 dissonant whispers, voices entreating you to come outside and join them. Again, they're not new either. Folklore has all sorts of myths about voices calling from the wild to lure you away forever, a deadly siren song. But you were seen first.
While sat upon the Ross in an office block.
And they got no use for it.
That's the other thing about sailors' songs. A lot of them are crude or funny, and it's not just because you're all a bunch of weird degenerates with a childish sense of humor. Not that the accusation is totally wrong, but it's not the reason for this. It's hard to be scared when you're singing something dumb. Everyone feels that. It's hard to be worried someone's gonna leap out of nowhere and murder you when you're listening to a dumb song. No serial killer leaps through your shower curtain to stab you when you're loudly singing the theme song to a kid's cartoon or something. It just doesn't seem like it can happen. You don't know if it's the stupid lyrics or if Psionic just takes particular exception to the light's voices trying to get in, but all the same, he rises up in the air with a hiss and plasters himself to the ceiling. His hazy body rolls down along the walls like smoke in a burning building. The chorus comes around again, but it catches you out. You can feel fewer voices, and around the shuttle you can see people trying to cover their ears to block out the whispers.
Shantyman, oh shantyman, who's got a bird for a shantyman? Sing you a song of a world gone wrong, but they got no use for a shantyman.
The lights around you in the shuttle start growing brighter and brighter.
To your mounting horror, you realize that everyone in the room is reacting to it. People you know are always out for this stuff are wide awake now, and they're terrified. You can't stop the song, though. You have to keep going. The people sat next to the newly awakened crew are hurriedly trying to explain that they need to keep singing and to do it now, but all the same, you're losing your backing and it's cutting into you. White tendrils of light start seeping out from every light fixture to the backing track of several terrified screams. Bro immediately leaps to attack, and with a noise that you swear you've heard in some video game, Psionic launches himself at the encroaching light, snuffing it out. You forge on, using Bro as your weapon against the void. Psionic dissipates, and for a horrible moment you think Bro somehow took him out. At least you think that until you realize that the air around you is hazy. He's dispersed himself into the hole of the shuttle. That's pretty smart.
You sent your shanty man away,
And they got no use for a shanty man. Shanty man, oh shanty man.
As you continue singing, everyone's voices hush, and you feel the shift in the air as the void retreats, the interference of the future recoiling away from your shuttle. You reach out for the dark and carefully cloak your shuttle in it as you go.
a quiet sound on the cool night air.
And they got no use for a shanty man.
Is it a ghost from a distant past,
Get away, you shanty man.
or just a breeze in the radar mass?
And they got no use for a shanty man. Shanty man, oh shanty man.
The voices around you pick up as you all sing the last chorus. Well, repeated one. A protective layer of darkness settled over the shuttle, and for now, everyone's safe within it.
Shanty man, who's got a berth for a shanty man? Sing you a song of the world gone wrong. And they got no use for a shanty man.
As the last line echoes out around the ship, there's a pause of just a second before many voices all shout out in a cacophony of demands to know what the fuck just happened. What was going on with the lights? What were the voices? What's going on? Why did they need to sing? You groan and cover your face with your hands. You've really had enough of today. That was better than last time. Dave's conscious this time, Solix says with a certain amount of forced optimism in his voice.
He usually is.
Aradia says, defending you because she's a saint. But we did it, though. That was the worst bit, and we got through it, so we're fine. Solix starts. Shut up! You and Aradia snap at him in unison. Jesus fucking Christ. If Solix keeps dooming you with jinxes, you're not even gonna make it to your impending sexuality crisis. I was just saying... Solix tries. Don't! I will get the duct tape. Aradia hisses at him. Matuna and Damara both seem to have something to say about that, and though you can't understand them, you can take a good guess on what they're saying based on their mischievous expressions. The amusement slides right off of you as Polypa starts talking from her place at the middle of the ship. She has one of those voices that can cut through conversation without any rise in volume at all. Well then, everyone, it looks like we have some information we need to give you all, she says. This is a lot of people to tell all at once. You're just glad it's not more. But if they found out and saw things, then there's nothing you can do about that, and telling them is the only course of action. All the same, you think you speak for everyone when you say, well, shit.